Smart 24, driving business.
Very good evening and welcome along to Business Today wherever you are. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Beans and Nakauchi on Sign Language, here to give you more of what is making headlines from the world of business. And kickstarting it off, we look at strengthening the microfinance sector. As microfinance and savings organizations have traditionally been at the forefront of government programs aimed at economically boosting its citizens, it is important for stakeholders to figure out how to sustainably grow them, because 70% of the individuals who live in rural regions use microfinance and saving clubs. We have more of the details.
The microfinance industry, because you see, microfinance industry is very key. If we want to develop this economy, we must ensure that we support the microfinance industry, because majority of Ugandans are served by microfinance industry, almost 80% of Ugandans.
Despite the fact that microfinances have contributed significantly to the economic growth of this nation, they continue to confront a number of difficulties, including taxation and COVID-19 pandemic, which caused many of their clients to go out of business.
When the public hear the word microfinance, for them they refer it only as credit. For the institution that only lending, they have to borrow money to only lend to the borrowers. And the challenge is that most of the borrowings are coming from outside the country, and when the dollar rates go up, the rates also go up, which they call hedging costs. So that is one of the key challenges. Of course, the cost of operations is very high, especially for the members, because you have to go deep in the village. And for example, right now, if one is go to the village, on average, he needs to hire a border of about 40,000. That is only transport. So that also increases the cost of doing business.
The government has taken action to support them for just that reason. The majority of Uganda's microfinance organizations depend on loans obtained both domestically and externally, and this has always impacted on the interest rates set by the dollar exchange rate.
If we want them to reduce the interest rate, we should ensure that we also extend cheap credit for them to only lend to their members, other than them getting money from outside of the country, and cheaply, or getting money from our banks expensively. That means that they will also have to lend it expensively. But for me, and the government's call is to ensure that all partners create cheap credit for the people. Okay. So now what you have to do, we have to partner with those institutions by giving them cheap credit or even a grant, so that they can extend it to their borrowers cheaply.
Honorable Kasolo stated that majority of the population must participate in economic activity if Uganda is to address the unemployment problems. Microfinance institutions are now lending to refugees in an effort to advance financial inclusion so that they can actively participate in various economic activities and boost national revenue.
We speak since we started operations, we have disbursed loans which are equivalent to 10 billion shillings. And the current balance is about 2.2 billion shillings. So that demonstrates that refugees can also be able to pay back the loans, given the fact that they are also engaged in economic activities. And of course, the environment in Uganda is very good, very conducive for the refugees, which are protected by the Refugee Act.
Because most of government initiatives are group-focused, it is crucial to enhance microfinance infrastructure. Monica Navyonga, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now let's look at the impact of business registration. Uganda Registration Service Bureau is responsible for registering and overseeing companies in Uganda. The 2012 Companies Act number 1 is a pertinent law, as all organizations and people must take into account the pros and disadvantages of registering a business. A limited liability company, a corporation partnership, or a sole proprietorship are all acceptable business structures in case one needs to register. We have more of this report.
When you decide to create a business, you must determine whether or not to incorporate it. Before selecting an option, you should consider a number of facts, including how it will affect your taxes, your personal liability, the expense, and any potential issues if you need to dissolve the registered business.
So the different entities that we register have different requirements. For example, business names, which is the cheapest, requires just filling a form called a business name application form, a fee of 24,000 shillings, and the ID of whoever the partners in the entity. Then we have what they call private companies by shares. We look at the nominal share capital of the company. I'm going to give an example. If the share capital of the company is 1 million, we look at a standard fee of registration, which is 50,000. Then the stamp duty, which is 40,000. Then you'd have what they call memorandum and articles of association of the company, with different forms required thereunder. So when it comes to a company of 1 million, it doesn't require a lot to register a company private by shares.
Businesses have a number of legal concerns that must not be disregarded. In the simplest of circumstances, a business may encounter difficulties such as doubts about its legitimacy, problems with employee and customer trust, a lack of consumers for your brand, and the inability of unregistered businesses to engage in open business dealings with major corporations, as well as to engage in unpaid advertising and sales.
You miss out big customers, we call them corporate customers, big companies, like for instance, the multinational companies. Most of them, since they don't pay cash, when they approach wiring services and products, usually they pay into a business's bank account. And as you know, if your business is not registered, it can never operate an account with any bank. Another thing is, you find it so difficult to compete with like big competitors, unless you have a monopoly in your industry or in line of the business you're doing. Otherwise, you find stiff competition from registered entities from your industry.
Registration offers your company legitimacy and enables you to provide services like warranties, refunds, and exchange, which are extra benefits that clients will undoubtedly value and evidence that you have nothing to conceal. Consequently, people have greater faith in your service. Bronya Katsime, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Right now, let's look at saving for retirement. To strengthen their retirement benefit program, companies are urged to implement a saving benefits program for their staff, in which both parties pay a portion of the benefits regardless of the employee's annual salary. Samla Hanifa has details.
Many Ugandans are still struggling to save their hard-earned money and now rely primarily on hand-to-mouth living with little left over. Despite significant attempts to encourage saving among Ugandans, just 18% of the working population participates in the licensed-based retirement plan, the majority of whom are in the formal economy.
We focused on those that are in the HR fraternity, the HR managers, together with the Federation of Uganda Employers. These are the people who constitute quite a significant portfolio of our membership, given the structure that we have in this country, which is dominated by mandatory contributions in this market. And mandatory contributions are normally enforced by the HR managers, and that's why it was very important to us. And normally, when you're at this stage of growth, you also need to consolidate.
Most Ugandans in the formal sector, according to Grace Namakoza of the Federation of Uganda Employers, only save through the required NSSF savings scheme, which only accounts for 5%
of their salary, which is insufficient.
The individual employers in their different sectors or at their workplaces to, beyond the NSSF, to actually also have retirement schemes to support their employees beyond upon retirement. And now we also again encourage employers to work out modalities, who contributes what at what point in time. And we have been also advised that there are some workplaces which can set up their own schemes, but you can also join already established schemes which employers can work around with and remit.
According to legislators, a large portion of Ugandans work in the informal sector, and it is still difficult for them to adapt a saving culture because they frequently withdraw all their savings in times of need, such as during COVID-19 pandemic. And given the high inflation in the country which is currently experiencing, it makes it hard for them to save.
The 8% of our population is in the subsistence sector, in the production, agricultural sector. Now, these people, the majority of them are living, we have 39%, which recently is being targeted by a development program called the parish development model, those who are living hand to mouth. So those ones, we cannot talk about them saving in any way because they are not even having enough to eat. They are not so. However, government is trying to interest them and initiate them into a money economy.
Okay, the savings arrangements that we had by law, the NSSF arrangement, you remember very well that it has always been for the formalized workers. So it got to the mind of those in the informal sector that if you're not working, if you're not a worker, you have no reason to save. And yeah, I think that's we just need it. It's a mindset change. It's an issue of mindset change, but it has to be deliberate. There must be deliberate efforts to institutionalize this message.
People in the informal sector, according to Uthman Mayanja of PricewaterhouseCoopers, should embrace diversity since certain enterprises will do well during particular times of the year and others may struggle.
Do not put all your eggs in one basket. So when you invest individually, whether it's in property, whether it's in shares, or whatever investment you choose, it is highly unlikely you're going to be able to achieve the diversification that you need. The reason it's important to diversify is that some investments will do well during particular economic cycles, and some investments will do badly.
46% of Ugandans who don't save indicate they do not have enough money to cater for their expenses. The question is, however, has government done enough to encourage these people to embrace the saving culture? Samla Hanifa, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Now let's look at the Africa Industrialization Day. Africa Industrialization Day serves as a day for African countries to review their progress towards fully industrializing their continent in an effort to promote import substitution, job growth, and a general decline in poverty. Now, given the industrialists that are in the country commonly assumed to emit considerable amounts of greenhouse gases, stakeholders have pushed industrialists to focus more on climate mitigation and adaptation.
For example, in 1986, our industrial sector to GDP contribution was only 10%. Now we are proud that it is contributing 27.1%. We had only 83 factories. We are now talking about 8,620, almost 100 times. We are looking at industrial parks almost in every.
Of course, when you look at these modern countries or developed countries like Japan, United Kingdom, USA, Germany, the only way they have achieved the first-class way of living is through industrialization.
Through the creation and consumption of high-value goods and services, industrialization has served as a growth engine in many modern economies. Uganda's industrial sector is comprised of manufacturing, mining, construction, quarrying, electricity and water. Its contribution to GDP has increased from about 25.1% in 2008 to 28% in 2022. On top of increasing exports of value-added manufacturing products, there is an increased import substitution as many products are now locally made here in Uganda, which creates market for agricultural materials and creates jobs for the local population.
But also we have been able to knock off many items on our import bill. For example, now we are producing tires in our own country. We are producing drugs in our own country. These are things that we used to import. We are assembling TV sets. Many factories create many jobs, and many jobs support our young people.
Stakeholders have urged industrialists to pay attention to climate mitigation and adaptation, as industrialists are typically thought to release large amounts of greenhouse gas emissions into the environment and into water bodies, necessitating the adaptation of environmentally sustainable technologies.
Actually, why I said that we are very passionate about quality and ethical practices is that we have actually invested a lot of money into ensuring that we don't pollute the environment. Lubowa, as you say, you have been there, you can see it's a green environment. You can even mistake it for being an office without manufacturing, without a factory, or even a hospital. It's very clean, it's quiet. When you come to Namamve, same story. We have invested a lot of money into modern technology. You will not see any fumes being emitted in the air. You will not find grease or oils spilled over our floors.
Parks to make sure that we take into consideration the requirements of our climate, making sure that the factories that we have do not produce a lot of pollution. So therefore the technologies that we use must be green technologies. At the same time, continue to support those policies that protect our environment. We have now, for example, taken a decision. There are no more building of factories in our wetlands. We have got to protect our wetlands because wetlands are key to supporting the environment. For example, they contribute 40% of the rain that we get comes from the wetlands.
Numerous issues that need to be resolved in order to forward the industrialization agenda still plague the industrial sector, among them including low productivity and capacity utilization, a lack of quality raw material supply, a lack of technology adaptation, high cost of value addition, inadequate skilled human resource, and limited capacity to comply with standards and regulations for product safety. Mary Goret Nachiganda, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Smart 24, driving business.